Good evening, everyone. Here, let me turn my mic up a bit. Hey, good evening to you all. Day 7 of the Erin Patterson trial is now in the books. We are done. We got out of court a few hours ago, and it was a full day. We had a really long day today in court, and I think some people think I'm speaking figuratively, but I'm actually in the court all day. We were there from about 10:30. We get a couple breaks throughout the day, and we normally knock off around sometime after 4, depending on who's speaking and what they would like to get done for the day. So it varies a little bit, but it is a long day in court. I can't imagine what it's like for all the people waiting to talk or be a witness or, things like that. It must be a long day if I think it's a long day. And then I've got to commute. I've got to get in and out of the courthouse and get home. It takes me a while. And then I got to sit down and edit everything, even more than I did during the day. So it is a bit of a long process. But hey, we get a video every night talking you through what happened today in the Erin Patterson trial. So I do have some updates for you, and I don't know where we would like to start. Everyone seems to have something different they would like to hear about today. One of the things I think we'll cover tonight definitely is two exhibits that were entered today and shown to the jury. One is a 000 call, and it is when Erin she released herself from hospital. So she wanted to go, and she eventually signed a form basically saying that it was on her own reconnaissance that she was basically leaving. And the form is called a discharge against medical advice form. So that's basically telling you that a doctor doesn't want you to go because they believe that you are in some sort of risk. We'll talk more about that. And then there was a second exhibit that was entered slightly before this. It is, where is it? Good work, Ping. Okay. There was a second, no, the first one, what came first was the exhibit we saw was the 000 call. That is with a doctor named CW. That's his initials. And the second one is a CCTV. It's about 2 minutes long. It was shown to the jury, and it is footage of that process of Erin Patterson wanting to leave that hospital. So I will take you through both things like that. Unfortunately, we don't have access to those exhibits once we leave the courthouse. They are shown to the jury, and we are able to take descriptions and things like that, but that is it. We don't get copies of it, nothing like that. So I will give you what I saw. I will give you some like my own transcripting of the 000 call and things like that. So. All right. Hey, do you guys like the thumbnail that Reby made? How cool is that? I like that thumbnail. Hold on, let me see if I can we do this? I want to put it up because I like it. Can I put it up? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, let me get it on the screen so I can turn my camera on. There we go. That's our thumbnail for tonight. Hey, good to see you all. Hey, live from Melbourne, Australia right now. Coming to you from basically Melbourne. That's where we are. We're in Melbourne, Australia. The trial, so if you don't know where the trial is in a town called Morwell, which is about 2 hours. If you just keep driving that way, you'll end up in Morwell eventually. And it's at a court called the Latrobe Valley Magistrates Court. And this is a special sitting of the Supreme Court at Latrobe Valley Magistrates Court. I know it sounds a little bit backwards, but it's just the way it is. They're holding a special session at this particular courthouse for this particular trial. Normally, what would happen is any trial like this that is at this sort of level would go to the Supreme Court in Melbourne. So there is a big Supreme Court in Melbourne that is just huge. It's really really big. It takes up like an entire block. It is a massive courthouse. It has many different things. I think it also even has like a law library down there for like lawyers and people studying for the bar, and I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, but it has a giant law library down there, so that's pretty cool. But so normally, if you'd have a murder trial, it would probably most likely be done in Melbourne, but this one is not. It's a different situation, and it's being held at a different courthouse. It's being held in Latrobe Valley Magistrates Court in Morwell. So I hope for people watching from far away might give you sort of some context, because I think a lot of people think it's been happening in Melbourne, and it hasn't. It is not in Melbourne. It's out in a country town called Morwell, which is a couple of hours east of Melbourne. So depending where you are in Melbourne, if you're from North Melbourne, it's southeast of Melbourne. If you're south of Melbourne, it's east of you. If they call it the southeast, but it's not really the southeast. It's sort of like the country southeast. The southeast is more like Bayside southeast. So there's a couple of different southeasts in Victoria. There's a few. Good to see you all in the chat. I'll give you this warning before we get started. Everyone knows the rules, right? The rules are no theories. No theories. No, your theory on what you hear, what I say. Treat it like you are a reporter in a courthouse. You can't be sitting there talking about what you think in front of the jury, right? That's how it works. Well, that's how it works down here. Even in a chat room on YouTube, you cannot be talking about things like that in case a jury sees it. What if they go home and they see it? You may subvert a trial. So we don't want that. We want a very clean trial. And the only way we can live stream, instead of like posting articles or something like that, or a podcast, or the only way we can do this type of format is if everyone abides by the same rules. So helping out, abide by the rules. So the rules are no theories, no commenting on evidence or what you think it might be or anything like that. And the third one is you must treat Erin Patterson as innocent. She is being in court because allegations are being heard against her, but she is not guilty. She is an innocent woman right now. That's the way we all must treat her. That's what happens in a live trial. You must treat her as an innocent person because no verdict has been handed down by any jury. So let's all play along. Let's all play by the rules. And if we do that, we're going to have a great night, okay? All right, let's get underway. Let's get underway. You might find something, but they are also under the same subjudice laws. So just remember that. Remember that. They are also under the same subjudice laws. Doesn't matter where you go. Doesn't matter. It's not just YouTube. It's not just Twitter. It's not just a forum. They are all under the same legal framework. So you can be called in by Justice Beale yourself if he felt like what you were saying online is subjudice contempt to the court. He could drag your ass in. You don't need to be a creator. You don't need to be someone like me. You can be just a normal citizen and they can drag your butt in. It is the laws we live under, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, it's just the laws we live under. All right. Let's get underway. I want to start with this evidence from, well, the way I would say it is it was introduced it was played to the jury, and the person that was speaking on this phone call is uh, Dr. CW. So you're gonna hear a little bit more from Dr. CW in a minute. And what he's doing is he's calling from the Leongatha Hospital because Erin Patterson has discharged herself from the hospital when at this time they believed that there was a real risk to her. They were quite worried about this lunch that they'd had, and they were concerned that Erin was going to get just as sick as the other four people. And they didn't want her leaving the hospital. They wanted to keep her there for observation and treatment and things like that. But she really wanted to go, so they made her sign the like discharge against medical advice form, and she left. But the doctor, Dr. CW, was so concerned that he rang 000. So if you're in America, 000 is 911. And this is how it went. This is what I heard today, sitting in that courtroom, and this is what was played to the jury and what I heard. All right. So we hear the beginning of the phone call, and it goes something like this. It's Dr. CW, and he's calling, and he says, "This is Dr. CW calling from Leongatha Hospital." And he says, "I have a concern regarding a patient that presented here earlier and has left the building and is potentially exposed to a toxin from mushroom poisoning." And he continues to say, "I've tried several times to get a hold of her on her mobile phone." So mobile is cell phone to Americans. And the triple O operator says, they ask about, should I give the hospital address or address of the patient? So they're asking what would be the address of where the incident or where they're looking, like what is the primary address that they want. And then the operator says, sorry, that's Dr. CW. He says, should I give like my address where I am, the hospital, or the address of the patient? So he's like, whose address do I give? And then the operator tries to clarify and says, if you know where they are, aka the patient, the address of the patient. So to try and track them down. And Dr. CW says, I have the address of the patient, and then I'm going to say it's redacted, Gibson Street, Gibson Street, Leongatha, 3953. And then there's some more details here that have been, I would say, for privacy reasons, have been redacted. Well, I've redacted them for privacy reasons. There's only so much we can give you, like names and like locations and things like that. So just you're gonna have to stick with it. And then the operator asks, "What is her name?" So the name of the patient, and Dr. CW says the last name is Patterson, Patterson. And the operator asks for the first name, and he replies, "It's Erin, Erin." And the operator proceeds, "Do you have a date of birth?" And Dr. CW says, 30th of September, 1974. And the operator says, "When did she present at the hospital?" Dr. Webster says, "At 8:05 a.m." And then the operator clarifies and says, "Today." And Dr. Webster says, "Yep." And the operator then proceeds to say, "Mushroom poisoning, you said?" Question mark. They seemed a little like, mushroom poisoning? Like that. That was sort of what I heard on the audio. And Dr. CW says, "So there's 5 people who ate a meal on Saturday, and 2 of them are in intensive care in Dandenong Hospital." And he continues to say, 2 have been transferred from Leongatha to Dandenong Hospital. And then he continues and says, "Erin presented this morning with symptoms of poisoning." The operator continues to ask for more information and says, "And what happened when she presented?" And then there's a bit of like a very micro gap. And she says, "She just got up and left." Dr. CW says, "No, she was there for a nurse to commence observations, and I was managing the critically unwell patients, and I had a brief chat to her about where the mushrooms were obtained. And after that, while I was attending to other patients, my nurse had informed me that she had discharged herself against advice." And he says, "I don't know. Hang on, we have the form here." And he continues to say, "It doesn't have the time she left, but she was only here for 5 minutes." The operator then proceeds to ask, "Is this her home address?" And he says, "Yes, the Gibson Street address is her home address." Operator asks to clarify again, "There were 4 other people who ate the same meal. Is this correct?" Dr. CW says, "Yes. So the meal was consumed by 5 people, and 4 of those people are now hospitalized, and Erin presented this morning." And then there's some contact numbers that were redacted for the hospital. And Dr. Webster, or Dr. CW, you can call him whatever, it's okay. Dr. CW, that's what I'm going to call him. "All the patients are now at Dandenong Hospital." And the operator says, "I'll let the police be notified about the address being that Gibson Street address in Leongatha." And they said, "Would you like to be notified with an outcome of this particular issue?" And he says, "Yes, I'd be happy for them to contact me anytime on my mobile number." And the operator says, "Okay, thank you very much for your help." And that's it. So that was the 000 call that we heard from Dr. CW, Dr. Webster, whatever you want to call him. I like to keep people's initials rather than keep replying like their full name all the time. It seems unnecessary to me to do that all the time, and I'd like to keep people as private as I can. I think it's only fair when they're trying to, do all this. I can try to do my part by not being like this person, this person, this person, this person, like every 2 minutes. So that's that 000 call that was played to the jury. We were able to listen to it at the same time, and it, later on in the day, we got a second exhibit that was played to the jury. This one had no audio, it was just a video, and it was a video of what part of this 000 call describes. And the 000 describes here that uh, the nurses had informed me that she had discharged herself against advice. And he talks about, "We have the forms here, but it doesn't have a time that she left. She was only here for 5 minutes." The video we saw was that process of Erin trying to leave the Leongatha Hospital and the nursing staff trying to tell her the risks, tell her, like, they were concerned for her health, and the fact that they knew about these other people and the case, like how sick they were worried about her, that while she felt okay right now, she may leave and get, very ill very quickly. Like, they weren't sure what was going to happen. So they rather her stay at the hospital for observation and treatment if necessary. But Erin really wanted to leave. She wanted to check on her children, and she wanted to check on her pets. So that was what she told the nursing staff, that she wanted to check on her animals. She wanted to check on her children, and she had to leave, but she'd only be a small amount of time. I think the time she said was about half an hour. She did end up presenting back at that hospital, and the time I have is this happened at around 8:10 a.m. in the morning. The time I have is 9:43 AM that Erin represented to that hospital. Let me double check if I'm talking absolute crap to you. I hope not. I'm pretty sure that's correct. Let me check my notes and I'm not just making stuff up. Let's move down to the other exhibit. All right. Sorry, guys. These notes are so dense and complex. Hold on. Yeah, I think that's the time that was given. I think they said that she said she'd be about half an hour, but she was a bit longer than that. About 9:43 AM instead of what would have been 8:30, 8:40 or something in the morning. So it was a little longer than that. I'm just trying to. Okay. Muffin, Daddy's working. Come on. Yeah, okay. I think that's correct. Hey, buddy, what are you doing? All right. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that, unless I'm gonna be corrected. I believe that's correct. Try and be very factual for you. Try and make sure that all the details are 100%. Let's see. All right. So like I was telling you, that second exhibit was just they described it as just a 2-minute video, and what we witnessed on that screen was they described it as an airlock or an air dock, and they described it as where ambulances come and like disembark the people or take people onto ambulances and bring them into the Leongatha hospital. And what you see is two sets of like those doors, those automatic doors, and then just inside of there, inside the hospital, and you see Erin Patterson walk towards these doors, and she tries to hit the door release. So there's a button on the wall, and she goes to like tap it to make the doors open, and the nursing staff and a doctor come and try and talk to her and say, "Hey, like as was explained to us, they told her the risks. They explained, how severe the situation was, and they said even after they had explained this, she still wanted to leave, and they made her sign that discharge against medical advice form, and they let her go. But then they made that call to 000. So Dr. CW made that call to 000, and yeah. So those two things go hand in hand, even though they were done at separate times today. We actually heard the 911 call slightly earlier in the day, and we saw the CCTV towards the end of the day. So different parts of the day. I just want to make that clear that they did not show us them in sequential or chronological order. We got the one earlier and one a bit later. Hey Aussie Tad, how are you? Aussie Tad said it's a very boring place in reality. As someone who went up to Morwell several times in the last week, I can tell you boring's not the word I would use, but it's just a town. Like I don't know what you want me to tell you. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go down to Leongatha or Currumbara, but it's something we're looking at maybe doing to have film some stuff or have a look around. But I can tell you my time in Morwell, which is it's a larger town than Leongatha or Currumbara. Currumbara and Leongatha are actually quite a bit smaller than Morwell. At least from my understanding, Morwell's a little bigger, even though it's not even that big itself. So that's my explanation. Morwell isn't boring. Well, it depends what day you go. Aussie Tad says Leongatha is boring in a nice, wholesome 1950s way. Yeah, that would be the impression that I got when I went to, well, at least for Morwell. When I went out there, a lot of things I noticed, I was like, wow, I haven't seen some of this stuff since like I was a kid. I was out in some of the shops and things, and I was like, wow, some of these signs and things I haven't seen since I was like a young boy. I was like, wow, that's weird. Why do they still have them? And it's just because I come from the city and everything changes in the city very quickly. So it is a bit of a culture shock, even just 2 hours east of Melbourne. So Renee said, I grew up in Leongatha. As soon as I turned 18, I got out of there. Interesting. We can't do too much commenting on that tonight, but I would like to hear from people that live in the area. If you live in Leongatha or Korumburra and you want to comment on something and tell me something in private, because we can't really do it on the show when we're doing this type of uh, you know court day stuff. But if you have something you'd like to say, let me know and I'll put my email in the chat. This is my email. Email me if you have a comment about either of those places, and we'll keep it to email. Pain on Chocolate says, "Is Morwell a nice place to live?" I don't know. I didn't live there. I stayed there for a week, and then I came home, and I've been commuting to the courthouse every day because I was like, I think I'm good. I already spent like $1,500 on hotels. I'm gonna come home. I'm gonna come home. Just gonna commute out there. It's got to be easier. All right, let's continue with our coverage from day 7. So this was the two that I gave you just then. They were the ones that had been reported this afternoon by a lot of different media, and they're the ones I wanted to cover straight away because I think people really wanted to know, well, what we saw in the courtroom. So I wanted to tell you what I saw and what I heard, and I thought maybe that would be of interest to some people. Just because it's a little difficult sometimes when these things are not released, so you only have what we heard and then I tell you, so it's just sort of the way it works. So I hope my my note taking and my interpretation has been informative about the trial. That's the word I'm going to use, informative. Okay, so I want to go back to another part of the trial. And it was one of the witnesses we heard from today that gave their evidence in court to the jury. And I wanted to explain the people we saw today. I think that would be a good way to explain. It was a very busy day in court, I can tell you. So today we started off the day listening to a doctor. His name is Dr. Mark D. That's all I'm going to give you. Mark D. That's his name, Dr. Mark D. And then we heard from the daughter of Don and Gail, and I'm going to give her initials as AT. So AT, and she is the daughter of Don and Gail, who are no longer with us. They are two of the people who died at this lunch, after consuming the lunch, if the allegations by the Crown are proven or not. But that's the allegation, is that her mum and dad died after this lunch. And then we heard from another lady. Her name is RD. RD. And she is the daughter of Ian and Heather. So Heather is Gail's sister, and so they're connected that way. So RD, is part of that family, and that's how they're connected. She would be the niece of Don and Gail. So yeah, and it would probably, I think it would work the same way in the other way. So AT would be the niece of Ian and Heather. So we heard from the two different daughters from each side of the family tree, and they are, if you swap it around a little bit, they're both nieces to the each other, the two different couples. So we also heard from the son of Don and Gail. His name is MP. MP. So we heard from a number of the children from both sides of these families, Ian and Heather, and Don and Gail. We heard from two of Don and Gail's children, and we heard from one, a daughter of Ian and Heather. So it was a busy day today. And then in the afternoon, we heard from Dr. CW, and then we heard from a woman. For some reason, Ping has left her name out of my list. That's just great. Good work, Ping. And you call yourself a reporter. How dare you? Let me see. I just want to grab her initials for you. Yeah, let's go down the bottom of my notes from today. Nope, that's not it. It was another doctor. And this doctor, I'm going to give you her initials as VF. VF. So she was after the other doctor. So a lot of doctors today. A lot of doctors. A lot of medical stuff today. But I would like to take you back and tell you what we heard from the daughter of Don and Gail, AT, because I would like to report that. It was one of the things that we heard today. So give me a sec. I'm not going to read her entire evidence, but I'll read a couple of things that she said. So here. Yep, that's not it. All right, that's down here. Sorry, guys, my notes is today were like 280 pages. So we keep changing different pages. So give me one sec. All right. So AT was called as a witness, and they ask her, you're the daughter of Don and Gail Patterson?" She says yes. And they say, "You're the youngest of four siblings?" And she says, "I am." And they say, "Your older brothers are S, M, and N." And they ask, "Is that right?" She says, "That's right." And they said, "So Erin Patterson is your sister-in-law?" And she says, "Yes." And they go on to ask her, "And who are Ian and Heather Wilkinson to you?" And she says, "They are my auntie and uncle." And the person asking the questions here, let me just give you the correct person. It's Miss Lenthal. So she's done some questioning before, and she is the one asking the questions to AT here. I want to make that very clear and give the correct credit to the right side of the courtroom and who is actually asking the questions. So it's Miss Lenthal. So Miss Lenthal says, "I'm going to ask you some questions about Thursday, the 27th of July, 2023. And she continues and says, "On that day, did your parents, Don and Gail, come to your house in the afternoon for afternoon tea and dinner?" She says, "Yes, they did." Miss Lenthal continues and says, "Did you have a conversation with your mum, Gail, about what her and Don were doing that coming Saturday, the 29th of July?" And she says, "They said they had been invited to Erin's place for lunch." And Miss Lenthal continues and says, "Did she tell you she'd been invited?" And she says, "Yes." She sorry. Miss Lenthal says, "Did she tell you who had been invited?" And uh, the reply is yes. She said that Heather, Ian, and Simon had also been invited. Miss Lenthal continues and says, "Did she tell you the purpose of that lunch?" "No. She said she didn't know what it would be about. She said it was unusual that Heather and Ian had been invited as they hadn't been to Erin's place before." Miss Lenthal continues and says, I'm going to ask you about things that occurred on Saturday, the 29th of July, 2023." And she continues and says, "Did you speak to your parents after that lunch?" And the witness states, "Yes, I phoned mum on Saturday afternoon." Miss Lenthal says, "After the lunch," and the witness says, "Yeah, it was approximately 5 o'clock." And Miss Lenthal says, "What did you say? What was the purpose in calling them?" And the witness says, "I called them to ask how the lunch went." Miss Lenthal continues and says, "Did you tell them how it went?" And the witness says, "My mum says it went well." They continue with a follow-up question. "Did she tell you what they ate?" She said, "Yes." She said they had beef Wellington and that it was too much for mum, so dad finished hers. And then it says here, "Did she tell you whether Simon had attended the lunch?" The witness replies, "She said that Simon didn't come to the lunch." Miss Lenthal continues, "During that phone call, did she mention feeling unwell?" And the witness says, "No, she didn't." Uh, so Miss Lenthal says, "I'm going to ask you some questions about the following day, which is Sunday, July 30, 2023. And she says, "Did you receive some information about your parents that afternoon, that day?" And the witness replies, "Yes, I did. I received a message on Signal from my brother, Simon." And they ask, "What was that about?" 1:11 p.m. So about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And the witness replies, "Yeah, it was." And Miss Lenthal continues and says, "Who were the recipients of the message?" And the witness states, "My siblings." And it says here, "What did Simon tell you in that message? Or or did he tell you in a group in that message?" And the witness says, "He said that mum and dad were in hospital at Currumborough Hospital. They had been experiencing vomiting and diarrhea since about midnight." And Miss Lenthal continues and says, "Did you mention Heather and Ian?" And she says, "Simon said that Heather and Ian were at Leongatha Hospital experiencing similar symptoms overnight." Miss Lenthal says, "Did Simon say anything about Erin?" And the witness replies, "He did. He said that Erin was experiencing diarrhea but was soldiering on at home." And they follow up with this one, say, "Did you try to contact your parents at that point?" And the witness says, "I didn't because Simon in that message also said they were worn out and tired." And then they follow this up with, "Did Simon inform you that your parents had been transferred to Dandenong Hospital?" And the witness replies, "Yes, he did." They follow that up with, "And he told you that your parents had been separated at Dandenong?" And the witness replies, "Yes, he did." They continue, "Did you offer to come to Dandenong to stay with your mum?" And the witness replies, "I did." And they say, "That was eventually the arrangement that was made?" And the witness replies, "I did, yep." They follow that up and said, "Did you travel to Dandenong Hospital?" They said, "Yes, I did." And they said, "You arrived about 10:53 p.m. Sunday evening?" And she says, "Yes." "Was Simon there when you arrived?" And she replies, "Simon was there when I arrived." And I'll take you down to this little bit. A lot more of these like yes no questions, but I'll take you a little bit further down. And it says, was your dad talking to the medical team at the time you arrived? And the witness replies, yes, he was. And the follow up question to that is, he was telling the medical team that they are, and it's a statement asking for a question. And they say he was telling the medical team that they had eaten a beef Wellington for lunch. So they're asking for what she remembers about that particular statement. And she replies, "Yes, he said that." And the follow up question is with right, yeah. So they're asking here. He was telling the medical team that they had eaten a beef Wellington for lunch, and she says, "Yes, he said that." And they said, "With mashed potato, green beans, orange cake, and a fruit cake." And she says, "Yes, he did." So her dad, Don, had told the medical team what they had eaten at this lunch, and they detailed that as the beef Wellington, mashed potatoes, green beans, orange cake, and fruit. So the orange cake and fruit, I think, were eaten after lunch, but they just wanted to know everything, like what was all they ate to try and have a look into it, I guess. And they said, and did he tell them that he ate his portion and approximately one third of your mum's? And she says, yes, he did. And yeah, so when she arrived, her dad was like detailing what they had eaten at the lunch the day before. I just want to take you down here. She says here that later on, after caring for her mum overnight, including having to take her mum to the bathroom several times, that that she left on Monday morning. And the question is, did you remain at the hospital on Monday? And she says, I left Monday morning. And the follow up is, was that so your brother M could come and change places with you? And she says, yes. They ask, did you eventually learn that your parents had been transferred to the Austin Hospital intensive care unit? And she says, yes. Um, that's sort of the final point we've got to so far. Is it feels like that's sort of the point we're up to. We haven't heard much more past the Austin. So they started off at these regional hospitals, Korumburra, Leongatha. Then they get transferred out to Dandenong Hospital, and then while at Dandenong, they then eventually get transferred to the Austin in Melbourne. So that's sort of the point we're up to. We've heard from a lot of the doctors from Leongatha, Korumburra, some from Dandenong, but I don't think we've heard very much from what happened at the Austin as of yet. I don't know if we will. I have no idea. It may come up in the next few weeks, but that's sort of the point we're up to. So the witnesses and the doctors who are witnesses too, but giving their evidence, it's sort of that chain is the way it's gone so far. It sort of started at these regional smaller hospitals, moved to these tertiary hospitals, but we're only just sort of hearing in the evidence about being transferred to the Austin, so a third hospital. But it's sort of like we haven't got over that bridge yet. We've heard little bits about them being transferred out of the Dandenong, but not actually what sort of took place at the Austin hospital. So maybe that'll be in a future day. Maybe there'll be future witnesses. We'll see. But I wanted to give you sort of like the timeline of the evidence that we've heard so far. Here we go. All right. So that was like a good chunk of what she had to say today, the daughter of Don and Gail. And yeah, it's like she says here that she had to take care of her mom overnight. That included having to take her mom to the bathroom several times. It's Yeah. All right. I want to go. So that was the daughter of Don and Gail. I want to talk to you about another one of our witnesses today, this time a doctor. And I want to go up here. Okay. All right. So this witness was called, and this is Dr. W. Dr. W or Dr. CW, whatever you want to call him. I think that would be okay as long as you keep the doctor there. I think that's respectful. And it says here, they're asking him, like, are you the director of the Leongatha Healthcare Medical Clinic? And he just says he's one of the directors, not the director. So that he was correcting them a little bit, saying that there's more than one director. He's just one of them. And his reply was, one of the directors correct. Um, so that's his title, Mr. Dr. CW. He's a director of the Leongatha Healthcare Medical Clinic. That is the full title for it. So that's what he does. He's a director there. And they ask him if they can talk to him about Sunday, the 30th July in 2023. And they ask, were you rostered to work on that particular day? And the question is worded like this from Miss Lenthal. Were you rostered to work that day? And he says, yes, I was the first on-call doctor. And they ask about that type of shift, like what is a first on-call doctor and how long does that shift run for? And the question is phrased like this. That is a shift that you're rostered on essentially for 24 hours. Is that right? And his reply is from 8 a.m. until 8 a.m. So they're on for a 24-hour cycle. And they ask him when that shift commenced for him. And the question's worded like this. That commenced at 8 a.m. on Sunday, the 30th of July. Is that correct? And he says, that is correct. And they said, and that went until 8 a.m. Monday, 31st of July. And he says, correct. And they ask a follow up about how could you be at a hospital for 24 hours? That's sort of what they were getting at. And they ask him, you're not at the hospital for that entire shift, is that right? And his reply is, you're not uh, you're not required to be at the hospital for the entire time, but I typically would be there for a large percentage of the 24-hour shift, or 24 hours. And they follow this up asking Dr. CW, when you're an on-call doctor, what are your duties during that period? And he replies, the first on-call doctor is responsible for the patients on the general ward, responsible for patients that present via urgent care, and also responsible for taking phone calls from other hospitals that wish to transfer patients or phone calls from local aged care resident facilities. And they ask him in a follow up to his evidence that he just gave, they're asking him, like, what is an urgent care? And it's phrased like this from Miss Lenthal. The urgent care, could you explain, please, what that is? And he goes on to explain what an urgent care is. And when I was listening to his testimony today, he explains it like this, and I'll give you the direct quote. He explains it that an ER at a big hospital and an urgent care are sort of similar. Um, yeah, it's just a smaller, you know, operation, and he says it here, and I'll read the question from Miss Lenthal. The urgent care, could you explain please what that is? And his reply is, urgent care is similar to accident and emergency, except that it is a facility that has far less presentations. So it's not funded by the state hospital system. Urgent care is usually staffed by private GPs that visit the hospital. And he goes on to say, so, presentations of individual patients are quite similar to a typical accident and emergency department. It's just on a smaller scale. So, it's like an ER, is what he's trying to say, but it's just like a small one, like a little tiny one. It's not like one of those real big, like ERs at a tertiary hospital. And then it says here, hold on, guys. All right. Sorry about that. Someone was being stupid. All right. So we spoke about what is the difference between an urgent care and an emergency department. And in his evidence, Dr. CW told you, and he just said it's basically the same, it's just on a smaller scale. And yeah. So they ask him here at 9:06 a.m. while you were doing that round, did you receive a phone call from another doctor informing you to expect the arrival of two patients to the urgent care center with vomiting and diarrhea? And he says, yes, I did. And then follow up from Miss Lenthal, she says, at 10:07, did you receive an SMS from that same doctor informing you not to worry, as those patients had been presented at Korumburra Hospital? And he says, yes, I did. Then at 10:46 a.m., did you receive yet another SMS from the same doctor informing you to expect the arrival of two other patients different from the two that he previously informed you about, with vomiting and diarrhea, who were going to present at Leongatha? And he says, correct. And they, in a follow up to that particular question, Miss Lenthal says, did you understand that those were two different patients to the ones that had presented to Korumburra? And he says, yes, I was aware there were 4 unwell people. And they said, did that doctor also inform you that those 4 patients who were all presenting with vomiting and diarrhea had reportedly eaten the same meal? He replies, yes, I was aware that they had eaten the same meal. And he goes down here and they talk about, through the evidence and questioning, that when they presented, what were the symptoms? And Dr. CW replies, they were triaged by a nurse who documented their symptoms, and the symptoms were nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. And they said, were you informed of their presence by the nurse who had triaged them at some point? He says, I'm not sure. A nurse came up the corridor and told me that they were there. Whether that was the same nurse that triaged them, I'm not sure. So he's saying he doesn't remember that. He just knows that a nurse came up and told him that there's 2 people down here with these symptoms. And they ask, when you first saw Ian and Heather Wilkinson, where were they? And he replies, they were together in the plaster room or isolation room in the same urgent care department. One of the questions that they asked about was, what is a plaster room? They were asking about it there in the evidence. They're like, what does a plaster room do? And when I was listening to the testimony, I was like, I don't know what a plaster room is. And I was like, I wonder if it's for somebody who breaks their bones or something. And it was that. In his reply, in the question from Miss Lenthal, she asked, what is the purpose of that room where they had Ian and Heather? And his reply is, if someone presents with a concern for an infection, that they might be contagious, they go into the plaster room to be isolated for contact precaution. And obviously, if someone has got a broken arm, they need a plaster cast. They tend to get it in the plaster room as well. So it seems like it's a some sort of multi-use area, maybe an area they don't use like super often. So they often use it for isolation. Um, Also for people who break bones that need a cast on your arm or your leg, or I don't know, on your testicles. I got no idea. No idea what you break and you need plaster for. What do they say here? They said uh the questioning from Miss Lenthal is asking about initial assessments of Ian and Heather. And they say, what were they like when they first came into the urgent care? And the doctor's reply is, they were clearly unwell but not distressed. They were both able to freely communicate. So they weren't very like they were feeling pretty sick, but they weren't like, stressing out or anything, and they were able to talk. So that was what he said in evidence. And they said, did they report to you, so Ian and Heather, when their symptoms of vomiting and diarrhea had started? And the doctor replies, yes, the symptoms started the evening of Saturday, 29th of July. And they said, you said evening. Did they report a time or you cannot recall? And he says, no, I can't recall a time. One of the follow-up questions is, did they report to you whether they had eaten anything since the lunch? And he says, neither of them had eaten anything since the lunch. So neither Ian nor Heather had eaten anything after the Sunday luncheon meal. And I'm going to take you a little bit further down where he talks about the lactate. So they talk about like some of the testing they do, like they stethoscope their stomach and look for like normal bowel sounds. They do like, heart check and try to look for, different symptoms. And they say here, in his notes, they said here, he has some notes which are titled "Admission Notes Leongatha," and then it had notes for today's notes for the 30th of July, 2023. And the doctor replies, "Yes, my admission notes are these ones." And they say, "Are they authored by you? Is that right?" He says, "I wrote that." And they said, "Okay." They ask him a question down here about what some of these writings mean. And they say, I want to take you to the salient point of this, primarily heart rate. You have recorded regular 96 beats per minute. And he says, yes. And some of the other descriptors on that, on that are, you know, what was the word they used here? I want to say the correct, admission notes. They ask, what do they, you wrote down abdomen, lax, non-tender, normal bowel sounds. And he says, correct. And then slightly acidotic. And he says, correct. And they said, what does that mean? And they said, the next line says, lactate okay. And he says, the simplest way to understand lactate and acidosis is when the body is burning fuel. If there's not as much oxygen available, then lactate will be produced. Lactate is equivalent to lactic acid. It is just whether it is in a solution or a salt. So by creating more lactate, the pH of the blood becomes more acidic or acidotic. And they say, oh, all right. So you have noted slightly acidotic at that point. He says, yes, slightly acidotic. And they say, okay. And there's another comment and it says, creatinine, okay. And he replies, Heather's creatinine was okay, correct. And they said, the plan at that point was to admit Heather to a ward. Is that correct? And he says, yes, to the general ward as an inpatient. And they said, and to provide IV fluid and other treatments if necessary. And he says, yes, IV fluids and medication to reduce nausea and help deal with the symptoms. And then they want to talk about Ian. And they say, in those notes, it says, for management of diarrhea and vomiting since midnight for Ian. And he says, yes, that's what it says. And they say, is that the same for both sides of the... And they say, yes, for management of diarrhea since midnight. And he says, Ian was administered with naloxone 10 milligrams. Naloxone 10 milligrams. And he says, correct. Oh, my pronunciation's gonna get a workout tonight. And they say administered pantoprazole, pantoprazole, and he says, and that's what he goes, yes. And they say thank you, and normal saline was commenced for Ian as well, and they say, and he says yes. Dr. CW says yes. And they say that is what it says down on the bottom on the left-hand side. He says normal saline. And they said if they can go over the notes again, salient points for Ian. And it says heart rate was noted as 80 beats per minute regular. And he says correct. He says chest clear. This is Miss Lenthal asking, by the way. Chest clear. Doctor says correct. Miss Lenthal asks abdomen lax, non-tender, increased bowel sounds. He says correct. And then they say for Ian, you noted slightly acidotic as with Heather. And he says yes. Lactate okay. And he says correct. And it says here, with Ian, you've noted creatinine elevated. And he says correct. So the question here from Miss Lenthal is asking about what does elevated creatinine indicate? And this is what my notes say from what I heard the doctor explain. He says, when we do blood tests to assess the functions of kidneys, we measure creatinine, which is a waste product to be eliminated in urine. So if the creatinine is rising in the bloodstream, it indicates kidneys are not functioning as well as they normally would. So that's why they look at that particular thing. It indicates kidney function. That's what they look for. Yeah, it's a 4-hour commute every day. Yes. So you all better love me very much. RX Girl says, I finally know what you're talking about. Meds on my job. All right. RX Girl's like, I can understand something. Good, because I have no idea what it is. I can only tell you what I heard in evidence. Other than that, I don't know what any of these words mean. I'm sorry. I know what creatinine might be. I know some of these other ones, like I know what saline is. I know what acidotic is because it was explained to us in the evidence that we just read before. And they say here after they talk about the creatinine in the for the blood test, they say you have noted that there was an improvement after repeat saline. Is that correct? He says yes. The IV saline hydration improved the creatinine level, and they said Miss Lenthal asked the treatment plan at that point was the same for Heather. Oh wait, hold on. All right. Yeah, so they're asking about Heather here, and they say the treatment plan at that point was the same as for Heather. It was admit to a ward, continuous saline, and other medications. Is that right? That's from Miss Lenthal. And he says, yeah, and also to do formal bloods in the morning because it would have been Monday morning. It's much easier to get lab work done at Leongatha Hospital if it's not after hours. So there you go. Some testimony from Dr. CW today about like the intake process of Ian and Heather. So there you go. Yuta says 4 hours a day. That's why I get back so late. Everyone's like, hurry up, do the show. And I'm like, bro, I just got home. Like, I haven't eaten anything all day. I gotta keep writing and editing and stuff. Like right now it's 9:06 p.m. and I still gotta have dinner. Like I haven't done anything. I haven't done anything except for this court case all day since about 7 a.m. So we got a month to go. We got a month to go. All right. So that was Dr. CW just talking about some of the intake procedure and some of like his notes, administration notes when they came in, and what he found doing some of his testing and exams on Heather and Ian, very early exams. Do you guys want to know any? Well, I just want to break for a second because I've been looking at like text for like the last hour. Do you guys want to know a little funny story about Ping in the media room from yesterday? I will tell you. I will tell embarrassing stories about Ping for you, and it relates to this question from Yuta. Okay, so I was sitting in the media room. It was like slightly. It must have been after lunch or before lunch. I can't remember. And I was watching the trial and I'm taking all my notes and all of a sudden my stomach just growls like you guys hear it on the stream sometimes. You're like, eat before you come on the live stream. But it was really loud and like where we're sitting like watching the trial is very quiet. And I went, stomach, no, because I'm so used to doing that on the live stream. And there was like all these journalists and people, and so there you go. There's Ping's embarrassing story about being embarrassing in front of other media people. It was pretty funny. Um, so today, I was like, no, I'm not going to let that happen. And I actually took some K time bars with me because I was like, if I feel my stomach getting really hungry during the trial, I'm gonna eat the K time bars so that I don't have a, a weird call out yelling at my own stomach in the middle of a trial. So there you go. There's my embarrassing story from the week. They must all think it's hilarious. I'm sure they're all joking about it when they go to drinks on a Friday night. They're like that YouTube guy yells at his own stomach while in the trial. You'll see it. You'll see it. So no, I've been taking K time bars to stop it. Because there's no time. There's no time to. Well, there is at lunch, but you got to get out of security and get back in. You got to do stuff, and like there's no time to really go get some food or whatever. It's just so I don't eat until I get home. I edit down my notes. I come and talk to you guys, and then once I get out of here, I start eating and probably winding down for the night, and then get up and do it all over again 6 a.m. in the morning tomorrow. But that's the thing, hey? You wanna play reporter? That's what you got to do. All right. By the way, that was a personal story. It has nothing to do with the actual trial. It was a personal story. It has nothing to do with Erin Patterson or the murder trial. It's just so there is no online stream for this trial. You must attend in person. If you want to take notes and report on it, then you have to be there. That's it. There is no online, there is no stream, there is no recordings or anything. You have to be there. You want to take notes, you want to report on it, you want to do content or whatever, you got to be there. It's just how it is. What time is it? 9:10. All right. All right. I want to go to a different bit of testimony from a different witness. Hold on. If I can find it. So we did the CCTV, we did the 000 call. All right. Give me a sec. I just want to drink and then I'll do the next bit of testimony. Hold on. Yep. I hear you guys. Thank you for playing by the rules of the channel right now. Keep all your questions, write them down. Write them down. Keep them all till the end of trial. We get a verdict. We can have a 5-hour live stream where you can ask all the questions you want to ask. Right now, you guys are being really good. It's not the time for questions. It's not the time for theories. So I appreciate you guys playing by the rules. I appreciate it. Keeps Ping out of jail. Keeps Ping out of the chambers of Justice Beale. I have already been warned several times that Justice Beale does not mess around and he does not like his court being screwed with. He will rake you over the coals if you do something wrong. He is a nice justice. He seems to be very like from what I've witnessed in the trial, he's I see him do his job every day, but you know, I don't think he would like if we messed around with his trial. So I think he'd like to just do his job in peace and then to deal with someone like a YouTuber. So Sean says, think of your strictest teacher and double it. I don't know about that. I've never actually talked to the man, but some people did tell me that he just doesn't want people screwing with his trial. So I'm gonna try not to do that. I'm gonna just try to do my job and be as factual as I can, and just try keep it to my rules that I have, and that's it. All right. I want to go back to. I want to talk about some testimony. This will probably be the last one for tonight. I don't really want to do a 3-hour show tonight. I'm starting to run out of frigging gas. This week we still got a couple of days to go. Hold on. All right. So this testimony was from a doctor, and this doctor's name is it's VF if I'm remembering my initials that I gave you. VF? Yes, it should be VF. All right. Let's go back in my notes. All right, hold on. All right. Let me get these last bit of notes for you for tonight. All right, if they'll actually get back to them. Okay. No, that's not the right person. Da, 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 da. All right, that's it. No. Sorry, guys. I will get there, I promise. All right, here we go. So, this is another doctor, and she is called Dr. VF. Dr. VF. And she was later in the day, and she describes her occupation as a specialist general practitioner. And they ask, she describes herself as a specialist general practitioner. Then they ask, and this is from Miss Lenthal, you're a registered specialist in general practice, is that correct? She says, yes. And they said in July of 2023, you were working as a GP at Leongatha Hospital. And she says, yes. And then they also say you were also working as a consultant in the emergency department at Latrobe Regional Hospital. And she says, yes, I was. And then they follow that up. On Monday, 31st of July, you were rostered as the first on call for Leongatha Hospital. Leongatha Hospital on that day. And she says, yes, I was. And they say that is a 24-hour shift from 8 a.m. on that day until 8 a.m. the following day. And she says, yes. And they said, on your arrival to Leongatha, you arrived at 8 a.m. Is that right? And she says, yes. And they ask, were there two ambulances present at that time? And she says, yes, there were two ambulances when I walked in. And they ask about a conversation by way of handover that she had with Dr. Webster. And she said, yes, I had that conversation. Yeah. And the way she phrased it was, yes, I did. And they say, did he inform you that two patients had gastroenteritis symptoms? And she says, yes. And they said, and were suspected to have been exposed to toxic mushroom poisoning. And she says, that's right. They follow up and say, did you have any role in the care of these two patients? She says, no, I didn't. And they said, at the time, though, did Dr. CW also inform you of the treatment they were to receive? And she says, yes, he did. And they said, what was the treatment for? And she replies, they were being treated for toxic mushroom poisoning, and the treatment was IV fluids, NAC, and antibiotics. IV antibiotics. If you ask me what NAC stands for, I'm not going to be able to pronounce it. It's here. I can Google it. And if you ask me to pronounce it, I'm going to die. This is what NAC stands for. If you ask me to pronounce it, I don't think I can, but that's the full name for what NAC is. All right. And Miss Lenthal says down here, after they had the handover and talk about what type of treatments that should be for those two patients, and they follow up and say, at some stage, this is from Miss Lenthal, did you become aware that Erin Patterson had presented to the urgent care center? And Dr. VF says, yes, the director of nursing had told me she had presented. And they ask, who is the director of nursing? And she replies, Kylie Ashton is the director of nursing at the hospital. So there you go. And they saying, at what time did Erin Patterson present? And she replies, approximately 5 minutes past 8 a.m. And they say, was she triaged upon presentation? Yes, she was. And by who? And again, Kylie Ashton. And they said, did Kylie Ashton report to you after triaging? And she says, VF says, yes, she did. And they said, and what did she report? She says she reported that she'd asked Miss Patterson to come into one of the cubicles so that she could be assessed. And at that point, Miss Patterson wanted to leave the hospital, so she wasn't willing to come in to be assessed at that time. They're saying here, in terms of why Miss Patterson had presented to the urgent care center, did Kylie Ashton relay anything to you in relation to that? Dr. VF says, yes, she did. Miss Patterson had eaten the same meal as the patients did, that were being cared for already in the urgent care, and that she had symptoms of diarrhea and nausea over the preceding day or so. And they said here, they're saying here, where was it that you spoke to Erin Patterson? And it's phrased like this. Did you go and speak to Miss Patterson? And the reply from Dr. VF is yes, I did go and speak to her. And they said, where was she when you spoke to her? She was in the ambulance entry exit point. There is an airlock sort of before you come into the urgent care where the ambulance enter and exit the hospital. And they said, was she sitting or standing? And they say she was standing. And what was she doing from Miss Lenthal? And Dr. VF replies, she was on her way out. Miss Lenthal asks, what did you do? And Dr. VF replies, I talked to Miss Patterson and relayed our concerns for her health and the potential that she could become very unwell, and that it was our medical advice that she stay and be further assessed and treated. Miss Lenthal follows up that with, what did she say in response, if anything? Dr. VF says, she told me that she wasn't able to stay at that point in time. She had to go home and do some things for her, make some preparations for her animals and children, and that she would return to the hospital. Miss Lenthal follows that up again with, did she say how long she might be? And Dr. VF replies, I can't recall exactly, but I thought she said she would return within about 30 minutes or so. And this is when they play the CCTV. So there you go. And that's the CCTV I described at the start of the show. And I'll do one little more bit from Dr. VF's testimonial evidence here. And they're talking here about when they reviewed Erin when she came back. It wasn't 9:43. Sorry, let me correct that from earlier in the episode in the show. It was 9:48 a.m. Originally left around 8:10 a.m. and it's 9:48 a.m. So if you heard it earlier in the show, it's 9:48 a.m. So I'm sorry about that. I will put a little thing up to correct it when I can. And it says here, they're saying, did you review her, Erin Patterson, at some point later that morning? Dr. VF says, yes, I did. I reviewed her, I believe at about 10:30 a.m. And Miss Lenthal says, at that time, did you take a history from her? And Dr. VF says, yes, I did. And they said, what did she report to you? Dr. VF replies, Miss Patterson reported to me that she had eaten the same meal as the patients who she'd previously been sent or transferred out. She had beef Wellington on Saturday at lunchtime. She reported that she had, since Saturday night, diarrhea and abdominal pain and nausea, but no vomiting. I asked her about where or anyone else who had eaten the meal. She reported that her two children had had the leftovers on Sunday, but they didn't eat the pastry or the mushroom topping, just the meat from it, and that they were well. I asked her about where she purchased the mushrooms, and she told me she purchased some mushrooms from Safeway in Leongatha and some dried mushrooms from a Chinese grocer in Melbourne earlier in the year. The follow-up to this from Miss Lenthal says, "Did she say when earlier in the year? Did she provide a month?" Dr. VF says, "In April, I think." Miss Lenthal follows it up, "April of the same year of 2023?" Dr. VF says, "Yes." Miss Lenthal said, "You said Safeway. Is that otherwise known as Woolworths?" Yes. Okay, I can give you some background here. In Victoria, Woolworths used to be called Safeway for a very long time, many, many decades. And only recently, in the last 10 to 15 years, was changed over to Woolworths. It used to be just called Coles. I mean, Coles. It used to be called Safeway. So only in like the last 10 to 15 years, they've started calling it Woolworths. And even me, even Ping, I still call it Safeway. So I'll go, "Hey, we're going to the Safeway to go get some groceries." So it's not uncommon for people to just use the old name. So if you're wondering what this exchange is about, it's because, yeah, over the last 10 years or so, the name got changed uh, to keep it like a national name. So in other states, it's called Woolworths, and in Victoria, it was called Safeway. So they wanted to make it like a national brand. So they sort of renamed all of them to match. So that's probably why there's a bit of a confusion here. And this particular doctor said Safeway, and that's why they asked, "Do you mean Woolworths?" And they said yes. Um, yeah. All right. I'll read this last little bit of evidence, and then we're gonna wrap it up for the night. They're saying here from Miss Lenthal, and she says here, uh, da, 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 da. And this is a little later in the testimony or the evidence. And Miss Lenthal asks, "So there had been a leftover sample of beef Wellington retrieved, and by that stage, was that at the urgent care in Leongatha?" And Dr. VF replies, "Yes, it was." So in that phone call earlier on to police, that was from Dr. CW. When Erin represented at the hospital, he was talking to police at the time, and he talked to them to tell her, "Hey, like, stop looking for her. She has come back to the hospital. You don't need to go, like, do a welfare check on her." But they had already gone to the property, where Erin lives. So, in his quick thinking, he was saying in his evidence that he asked the police officers if they would go into the property and retrieve any of that lunch, the beef Wellington, whatever they could find. And he said he acted as a between the police and Erin Patterson, and got Erin Patterson's permission to tell police that they could go into her property and retrieve the beef Wellington from the bin. So they did, and they brought that sample back to the hospital at Leongatha. So that's how we get to this point that we're just talking about here, where they say, um, so there had been a leftover sample of beef Wellington retrieved. That's how they retrieved it. And by that stage, was that at the urgent care in Leongatha? And they said yes, it was. Miss Lenthal then says, Did you look or handle the leftover beef Wellington?" And Dr. VF says, "It was in a paper bag from Woolworths, and the registrar from Monash Medical Center asked me to take a photo of it to send it to her to see if she could identify the mushrooms in the filling. So I, with gloves on, I took the sample out of the bag and put them on a clean A4 sheet copy of paper and took photos. I then put the samples into 2 pathology bags and put stickers on them. And she says the Bradma stickers, so the patient detail stickers for Miss Patterson on each bag. And they ask, when you took it out of the bag, was that the first time you handled it? And she says, yes. Dr. VF says yes. And uh, oh yeah, so they actually play another little bit of CCTV, and I will describe it for you here. So they play this recording to the court, and they say while this was replaying to the jury, Miss Lenthal has some questions, and she says, "We just saw someone walk into that area and place a bag on the bench. Who was that person?" And Dr. VF says, "That was me." And they say, "And that bag? What bag is that?" And Dr. VF says, "That's the paper Woolworths bag that the samples were in." And then Miss Lenthal says, "That area, what area is out of the hospital?" And Dr. VF says, "That's the triage area in urgent care." And Miss Lenthal says, "In the footage, we saw you take some small portion of some sort of dark brown or dark colored substance out." Dr. VF says, "Yes." And Miss Lenthal follows it up and says, "Then you took out an item, a food item. As you sit here today, can you recall whether there was anything else left in the bag or whether there was any uh or or whether that was the entirety of the contents of the bag? So was there anything left in the bag or was that the one thing?" And Dr. VF says, "No, I think there was another sample about the same size in the bag. And from what I recall, because I put them into 2 separate bags to send down to Monash." So there you go. They sent the 2 samples of the lunch out to Monash for more testing and further analysis. So they were looking at what was in this meal, what might have caused people to get sick. They were investigating. So, hey Nicole, how are you? Nicole R says, "I watch a lot of criminal trials that live stream throughout the night in the US. I heard the defendants don't sit at the front of the court next to the counsel. Why is this in Australia?" I don't think I've heard anything like that. I don't think I've seen anything like that. Normally they sit nearby, and this is not in any relation to the Erin Patterson trial, just my viewing of Australian trials in general. Normally they either sit near them or nearby, like at a desk that's slightly down. And sometimes that's because they have a large legal team. So you might have like a lead legal, like 2 assistants or something, and like a third person that's helping or something like. So their legal teams are quite big. I not heard this other bit. Hold on. Okay, I can't say I've seen a ton of it, but the explanation I have here from the Australian National University is that in Australian courtrooms, defendants are often separated from their counsel, sitting in a dock or other designated area rather than besides their lawyer. Their arrangement can, yeah, I can't go into the second bit of that, but what I can do is tell you that if you Google what I just said, you'll find a longer answer. I don't know. Um, we don't see Erin Patterson, so she's not in our view. That's all I can tell you. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to say much more. But what I can just tell you is that in our view, we are watching things like test evidence and the judge and stuff like that. That's the deepest description I can give you. But That's all I can tell you. Yeah. Yeah, I can't say I've seen this a lot. She's Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. I mean, yeah, I just don't wanna go too much into, like, placements, situations and stuff to do with Erin. Yeah, well, no, that's not fully true. I've seen stuff in the US where, there's different things. We can talk about it on a different live stream, like, where it's not Erin Patterson. Um, when I open a different live stream sometime, we can go into a deeper conversation about it and, like, different semantics about the differences between Australia and the US and stuff like that. But just tonight's probably not the best night for it. We're not allowed to really ask like any questions on this show. Um, but on another night, please come back and ask the same question, and we can have a deeper conversation. Or email me sundaywithping@gmail.com, or hit me up on Twitter at nightswithping and PM me, and I'll have a deeper conversation with you about it, and we can flesh it out in a PM. Okay. It's just some like yeah, there's just some things we can't talk about right now. Um, yeah, there's some technicalities, people, technicalities. All right, why is my dumb face up here? What happened here? Oh, I don't want my dumb face up here. Hold on, guys. You can see my cat. He's right here. Look, there's a cat here. Muffin. Hey, hold on, guys. Hey, hey, Muff. Hey, you don't want to say hello to everyone? All right. You don't have to say hello to everyone. Hey, I don't like my face being this big on the screen, so I'm gonna make it smaller because I look stupid. Hold on. All right. There you go. There you go. Um, I I look less stupid now. Well, no, I don't. I just look smaller and the same amount of stupid. Yeah, he's here. He's here. Marv. Hey, Papa. Did you eat your food? Hey, hey. He's ignoring me at the moment. I'm not sure why. Sean says, "I like that NASA sloppy Joe." Yeah, I love this. I love this hoodie. Look, it's got a flag on it. Look, it's got an American flag. I feel very important. No, I feel very official. All right, I think we're gonna wind up for tonight. That was enough testimony for tonight. I think. Yeah, I am beat. Yeah, I am tired. It's been a long day. Sean says, I have a NASA cap I wear for my fake moon landing friends. Yes. That's what I do. I wear this hoodie and I just go out into public and I'm just like, I see who freaks out first. And I'm like, haha, I got them. That's what I do. I like to freak out all the hipsters. That's what I like to do. All right. I love you all. I don't know how we broke the live stream. There we go. That's better. I don't know how we broke the live stream. We just did somehow. And I hope that was insightful. Like, I, c- I can't read you everything because we'd literally be here until about 7 a.m. in the morning because it'd be like like doing court all over again. And I'm just not going to do that. But those are the bits that I think were worth reporting on today and that people needed to know about. So that's what I try to do each night. I try to bring you the bits that um to me I think you guys would want to know about, you know. That's how news works, right? So oh, hey, actually, God, thank God she is here. Far out. By the way, Reby made this. Did you guys see this? Can I put this up here? Look at this. Reby made these like little key rings. Aren't they cute? Reby made this. That's so awesome. I'm not sure what we're gonna do with them as of yet, but they are awesome. If you want one, subscribe to the channel and, you know, like and subscribe and do all those things that YouTubers want you to do. Maybe you'll get one. Maybe Ping will give you one, or Reby will give you one. Maybe Reby will give you one. By the way, she wanted me to show you this too. I want to zoom. I want to crop. Can I crop this a little bit? Reby, is it alright if I show that photo? Reby, is it okay if I show the other photo? Let's see if she replies. I just don't want to show Reby's home without her permission. Reeves, is that alright if I show the other photo of the other thing? Let's see if she replies. Okay, she says okay. Alright. Look! Look, look, look. Reby has a new cat. Reby got a new cat. What's his name? Ollie, I think. Ollie? Ollie. His name is Ollie. So this is Reby's new animal called Ollie. Oh, this is your new office where you make all the key rings? Wow, you must be busy making all those key rings every day. It's a hard job. So this is Reby's cat. Where is he? This way? This way. Look. This way. This is Reby's cat, Ollie. Yeah, he's pretty, right? That's a nice cat. Muffin, should we replace you with Ollie? Should we bring Ollie here? Muff. Hey. Muffin's sleeping. He's like, I ate all my food, now I'm tired. I'm gonna go to sleep. He's like, I'm gonna ignore you, Dad, and I'm just gonna sleep some. He's a terror. You should have seen Muffin when he was like 1 years old. He used to hide behind corners, and when I went to step around the corner, he'd wrap around my feet like this and dig his claws into the top of my feet. And I'd wear him like a moccasin, except I'd have to keep my feet in the air, otherwise I'd crush him. So I was walking around with like only one leg and the other one was in the air with a cat wrapped around it like that. And he used to do it all the time, to the point where I had like cuts and scars all over my feet from this cat attacking my foot and pretending to be a slipper. Happened freaking all the time. Luckily, he's grown out of it as he's got a little older. Reby says Bunny Cat is not happy with having a little brother. Yeah, these two don't like each other either. Big Fluffy and Big Orange don't really like each other. All right. That's it. Day 7 in the books. Long day of trial today. I'm going to go collapse somewhere. And I'm going to be back for day 8 tomorrow. I've got to leave early again. I think I've got to get up at like 5, 6, 7. I have no idea. I got to get up, get to court, and sit with all the journalists again. So I'll be back. I'll be back. I'll keep drip feeding. So if you're not subscribed to the Twitter at Nights with Ping, you should be, because throughout the day I drip feed little bits of information that I feel confident that I've sourced it and I know what I've heard properly and don't have to double check. I drip feed little bits out there, sometimes before the national media. So I told you guys today about the CCTV. I think I had that before any news agency was able to get it out. So if you want those latest updates about the trial, you should be subscribing to the Twitter. I mean, you'll hear about it before it even hits like ABC or The Guardian, The Age or whatever. Even though they're nice people, I've met a bunch of people from all those papers and they're all lovely. But sometimes I can tweet it a little faster than they can write an article. So hey, you want to be the first person to find out stuff from the trial? Subscribe to the Twitter at Nights with Ping. Marjorie says, "Take care, Ping. Thanks for reporting." I appreciate it, guys. I know people are really sad that we're not having our normal shows right now. I promise, just it's only a few more weeks, and then everything will sort of go back to normal. And we'll be able to talk about a lot more things and analysis and why this happened and X, Y, and Z. All those things will happen. I promise. We just it's sort of like this, and I'm going to end the show with this. It's sort of like you're dating like a really hot girl, and she's like, you have to wait till like the fourth date. And you're like, I don't really want to wait till the fourth date. She's so hot. I just want to do it on the first date. And she's like, whoa, buddy, you have to wait till the fourth date. It's like delayed gratification. That's exactly what this is. that's exact. That's exactly what this is. You have to wait till the fourth date, and the fourth date is like sometime in 4 weeks' time. So, in a month, you'll get all the. Wait, how do I word that without getting censored? I don't know. You get the idea. You get the example. That's how it works. Um, I'll be back. Oh, wait, hold on. We have to check this thing. All right. Oh, wow. Hey, um, Sean, thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. Sean says, lunch, but hold the mushrooms. Man, I bought a giant pizza on the way home, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm gonna eat that in a minute. And to my friend Kathy Lynch, thank you so much. To the people who have been supporting the channel throughout the trial, helping to fund it and get me there and stuff like that. It means the world. It really is. This experience has been an experience of a lifetime. To be able to actually do the sort of like not read from articles and actually be there and cover a proper trial has been, especially one this big, has been the opportunity of a lifetime. It really has, and I can't wait to tell you a lot more when the trial is over, because there's so many more stories I'd like to tell, and antidotes and things that happened, and but it's just we're not allowed to right now. We've got to sort of just tell you the facts and what is said in front of the jury. So I promise you, there's some interesting, fun things we can do in about a month from now. But until then, it's just got to be Miss Lenthal and this question and this happened, because that's what happened. That's what happened in front of the jury. So that's what we have to tell you. All right. I love you all. I really do. Hey, Reby. All right. All right. We will. I'll pay you for them. I'll pay you for them. I don't. I'll fix you up for whatever it costs and whatever your time is and whatever. I'm not a cheap guy. I'll pay for you for it. Oh, by the way, we have some news on the hoodies finally. Uh, Possibly by early next week. Keep an eye out. If you're one of the people who won, keep an eye on your emails in the next like 2 to 3 days. Keep an eye out, because I got the shipping confirmation this morning. So uh, keep an eye on your emails. You guys should be getting a tracking number any day now. And thank you so much for waiting on that. And that is also why we'll never do them again. So those people got one of one. They'll never happen again. I hope they enjoy them. It has been too much annoyance. I'll never do it again. DJ says, today's my birthday. Hey, I hope you have a great birthday. Hope it's been a good celebration for you. And we dedicate this tonight's show to you. There you go. Ping dedicated tonight's show to you. Happy birthday. Day 7 is dedicated to DJ. All right. I love you all. I'm going to go eat and then fall asleep in my chair until I wake up in the morning, and then I go, wait, what time is it? Like a person who fell asleep in their chair. All right. I love you all. Good night. Have fun out there. And tune in tomorrow night. Tune in tomorrow night for day 8. Day 8 of the Erin Patterson trial. I'll see you then. Good night.